Hello, welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and how are you going? I hope you're having a fun time. Now, we are having a fun time because we are reading the book that bangs so hard your grandkids will have CTE. There we go. We have fun here. Let's review what we covered last time. Oh, new chatter. Welcome. Hello to you. To you we say...
Oh, very handsome and or pretty.
Yeah, we think you're very handsome and or pretty for following along with this channel. Okay, so we are learning the dialectic. That's how you make use of your capacity for self-reflection and language. The two things, the Greeks call that ousia and logos. Ousia, your capacity to turn around and know your own self, and logos, your ability to do that with language and understanding. So words are our tools. We follow the logos. Now, logos means more than just words. It means reason. It's the telos, that to which all things move. But words are what we have. So, recognizing that, we ask the question, well, how do we do it well? Chat, words can be blunt tools though. Yes, we're learning how to use it well. So, the skillful use of words that we have to learn, it's a skill like any other, that we can then use to benefit ourselves and others, turning that skill into an art, that's the dialectic. The misuse of words, the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing as human beings, the use of words to defend the beliefs we already carry, or...
Debate weirdo.
Being a debate weirdo.
Debate dweeb.
Being a debate dweeb, well, that's called debate. So dialectic, good. Debate, bad. So, and of course, the way in which we use dialectic or language and reflection to benefit is twofold. To purify ourselves from the root cause of human problems, that is, our false beliefs about self and reality. And by reality, I mean not just what's real or what's true. I mean what's good, what's beautiful, what's excellent. We all carry false beliefs about things, and that are the cause of our problems. That's called the pathologos. Welcome, Fusion Light. We are limited in our descriptions using words. Well, that's a certain belief we may hold about language. What is the limit? Are we limited? How far does that limit reach? Maybe we're not limited. Maybe everybody learnt that words were limited in some way. Either you were wrong, you're a bad noodle or a small bean, so you can't use words. Mind is wrong. Understanding is wrong, or words themselves are limited. So we all fundamentally learn a false belief about ourself and reality that comes paired with a diminished view of understanding, a diminished view of mind or reality itself, or a diminished view of yourself. Now, those three stages, understanding is the third, mind is the second, self is the first, are the next three stages of our evolution that we are supposed to be moving into. That's what the dialectic is for. That's what being human is for. That's the spiritual journey. That's education. That's learning itself. So we are learning what learning is. Now, while understanding is the third, direct experience of intelligence is the second, and its cause, or what even experiences mind, is the self. That gives us 3, 2, 1. The fourth stage, underneath all of those, that carries a false belief about those things, that causes our fear of those things, that blocks our purpose and our soul's movement, that is the fourth hypothesis, or the fourth stage, that's belief. So the way in which we help ourselves and others is to use third hypothesis, understanding the dialectic, to reflect on the origin of our beliefs, to find out why we believe the things that we believe that block that movement. That art of dialectic is called philosophical midwifery, because we're giving birth to the sick ideas that we carry that cause human problems. So that's how we benefit, purifying what's false. What that allows us to do is be free to go on and develop the mastery of the Logos. Master be? Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
Oh my goodness. Mastery of the dialectic to actually discover for ourselves how far understanding can take you. Can it take you all the way back to the self, the first cause of everything, and our ultimate goal, so the first and final cause? So those are the two ways, to purify what's false and to perfect what's true. The name for the fundamental false belief that diminishes our selves, mind, or understanding, 1, 2, 3, from which we develop a image of ourselves that we think we are, that's called the pathologos, the sick logos. Just as what we're here to master is the self-logos. So those are that's the one art we're here to master as a human being. This is all from the book, by the way. This is after 175 episodes of reading this book. This is what we've come to discover for ourselves through understanding and hopefully confirming it yourself in your own experience, that the purpose of humanity, the reason we're here, is to master the art of dialectic, which can be used to purify what we carry that causes human injustice, human problems, human blocks to the Logos, and perfect our excellence. Purification and perfection. So, what we also discovered last time is, if we do that, we become more like what? If the dialectic is the art of understanding and the way self, or the highest idea of God, the one self, if that's how the one self communicates to us, if that's how our dreams, our highest guide that we have access to, communicates to us, then we are becoming like God, like the Dream Master, like the self. So in our practicing of the dialectic, not just reading about Socrates helping Jesus, but becoming a master dialectician ourselves, not only can we help ourselves with our problems, can we learn to communicate with our dreams, learn to listen to our dreams, can we help others through the process of purification and perfection, can we learn how to read properly, reading without interpretation. Not only do we get all of those things, so it's win, 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 win.
It's a win, 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 win,
win, win, win, win, win.
It's a win, 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 win.
But we're also becoming like the self, which is our goal. And that's the point. It's the principle of likeness. Things that are like the same thing are like each other. That's our method. That's what we've been using. That's analogy. That's how we think. And that's a principle or axiom you have to take for granted to do anything. For instance, you learn about one traffic light. And this traffic light that I am reading in my driver's manual says red, it equals stop. And then when you're driving a car, you come across a new traffic light you've never seen before, but you see, oh, this new traffic light is equal to that one I read in my book. It looks the same. And if this first traffic light means stop, and the second traffic light is like the first one, then the second one also means stop. If A is equal to B, and C is equal to A, then C would also equal B. This is a fundamental axiom of reality that you take for granted for any kind of thinking. We're also making use of that as we are learning to reach our highest goals. If God or the self or our highest goal, the one self, equals dialectician, functioning as a dialectician, if that's how it functions, rationally, intelligently, using intelligence itself as the map and guide, and we, as souls, as developing psyches, also function as a dialectician. What does that mean? We are becoming, to the extent we do that, like the self, like the highest possible idea of God, or that which is eternal, transcendent, and the first cause. So, that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing it. Let's check in with chat. Who wrote this book? Dr. Pierre Grimes. One of a small handful of people who mastered the Logos. He coined the term pathologos, and he wrote a book called Philosophical Midwifery, The New Paradigm for Understanding Human Problems. So we read his stuff and the stuff from Socrates and Homer. We haven't read Homer yet, but that's on the horizon, because it's important that we read things that reflect the Logos, that are complete, that are intelligible, because that's where we learn about the self and reality. If you want to become a mechanic, you have to read a mechanical textbook. If you want to become a skateboarder, read a skateboard magazine. If you want to know about the nature of humanity, the meaning of life, the soul, our purpose, our highest goal, the highest possible idea of reality or God, you have to read a Logos book. Not only read it, but learn to read it without interpretation. As we've been reading from the book, Socrates is helping Jesus to see the reason why we read these books is because they are intelligible and complete, meaning you don't have to add in your own stupid ass opinions. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean the stupid beliefs and opinions everyone carries are worthless. They're just the cause of our problems and ignorance. And our loyalty to them is what makes us savage towards ourselves and our fellow human beings and the planet that we live on. So we don't give a shit about your stupid ass opinions. We want understanding. Understanding is true. Understanding is universal. Understanding is needed to benefit. But to do so, we have to give up the pretending to know shit that we don't, cosplaying the knower. Like a priest, I know what's real, believe me. And they get a kick out of it. No, just understand, you idiot. And if you understand, you should be able to help others go through that process of understanding. So that's why we read these books. In chat, I meant with a limited set of tools to describe our experience to others. Well, we'll keep that idea in mind. You don't have to throw it out. But as you learn to master the Logos, hopefully by reading these books that are bangers anyway, reading the most fun, interesting books anyway, learning to read them without interpretation, learning how to explore ideas like what is Logos? What is words? What is the reach? You can come to test whether the belief you're currently carrying about how words are limited, how far does it reach? Is it true? And if it turns out not to be true, that's a possibility for greater insight. Who did you believe? Who told you that words were limited? What did they know? Where did they learn it from? And is it part of a lineage, a family tradition that goes all the way back to caveman times? So keep it in mind, don't throw it out, but test it as you go. Do you equate God to the self? No, I don't do it. This is not about me. This is about understanding. The question is, how can we understand what is the highest possible idea of God? For instance, in the book, we're examining a God that is at war with evil, the Abrahamic God of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the three big ones in the world. Can that exist? Is it possible? If not, then that's a false belief about God that may be causing human problems and sweeping death and destruction across the world when these ignorant people with their limited false idea of God gain power. Because if it's their idea of God, it also is their idea of what's just, what's real, what's true. And also these people think, well, if that's the nature of reality, a God at war with evil, then we're justified in punishment or murdering our enemies. But if that's bullshit, and God is actually much, much better than that and real, then it might be not an issue between God and evil, but an issue between ignorance and wisdom. In which case, how do we solve problems? You guessed it, the dialectic, baby. So, and of course, any idea of God we can learn to examine with the dialectic. For example, if you think of a creator God, what qualities does that God have to be able to create? It has to exist, has to have a model, has to have a plan, has to have the power to create, has to be able to judge his creation. Hang on a second, where did all those qualities come from? So even a creator God is not the highest in principle. Something had to be the cause of those qualities, and for those qualities to exist as a oneness or unity, hey, if this shirt has blackness, wouldn't you agree there first has to be an idea of black? For there to be a creator God that has a oneness, what does that mean? What's prior to oneness? So, gave it away. If it functions in a good way, it has the characteristic of goodness. What does that presuppose as its cause? If it's the truth, what does that presuppose? So it's this reflection on ideas in a systematic way while addressing what is its cause. That is that's thinking. That's what it means to be a human being. You wake up in this video game, all we are doing is learning the manual, reading the manual. Oh gee, what do we do while we're here? All these other NPCs are not asking that question. We are. What abilities do we have? What does the A and B button do? None of these NPCs are asking that question. They're blindly obeying their parental figures that taught them these things, that they learned from, not taught, it was learned, that they learned what reality is from when they were little babies. And it takes a brave and intelligent person to reflect on their earliest teachers and realize, my parents were idiots. Sorry, difficult for you to recognize. That's the process. Very, very easy for you to see in 8 billion other parents, just not your own. Your parents were special. They were actually loving. They actually knew what life was about. That's the difficulty. Now that desire to be loyal at the expense of intelligence and reason is the cause of human problems. It's a primitive, caveman-like function that allowed us to survive before we could. So boo to that. Before we had language and ousia, which is good. Before we could reflect with understanding. But it's what we have to overcome. So that's what we're doing. We're learning what the A and B buttons are. Ousia and logos. And the special move when you press them together. Dialectic. Allowing us to uncover the unsuspected false beliefs we have about the nature of reality or God or the meaning of life and free ourselves from it so we can discover the truth. Do you reject naive realism? Use regular words. This is for everybody. I don't know what you mean by that. See if you can explain it in a more easy to understand way. Plato was a boss. Right, so we are learning about the difference between Plato and Socrates in this text. They didn't reach the same levels. One of the reasons was, we killed Socrates, who was Plato's teacher and dialectician and midwife, when Plato was still in his 20s. That's not long enough to go through the midwifery process to uncover the blocks to the logos, human problems, the pathologos. So Plato wasn't able to address his blocks, therefore not able to understand the nature of the 5 classes of human problems. We have done that in the last weeks, so we've gone past Plato, good for us. But also, yay for us, also Plato didn't see the significance of dreams. Or he saw the significance because his teacher talked about it, he just wasn't able to understand it. So we have no book from Plato about how to solve problems. We have no book from Plato on how to address dreams, but we do have a lot of stuff from Plato recounting Socrates' conversations about how to actually reach the true nature of the reality or goodness or oneness or truth. And of course, how to go beyond that to know the self, which is higher even than that experience. It's the cause of experience. Back in chat, we are the masters that make the grass green. I don't know what that means. What is NPC? NPC, a non-player character. So in a video game, I use video games as an analogy. We think through analogy. The way we conceptualize things we haven't yet understood or experienced is by finding the likeness to something we can see. It's a principle of as above, so below. So the logos inherent in the first cause or self unfolds into that brilliant light of pure being, which is pure ousia, or ousia knowing itself completely. That's a peak experience. It's the greatest experience, which is why some people confuse it for enlightenment. And that, of course, we recognize as the paradigm for reality. So it uses itself and creates like itself. So an artist creates art like itself, that kind of principle. So we use analogy to find things that are same and different or like it. So what we are doing here is waking up to our purpose, to know what we are, what is the self, what is reality, where were we before we were reincarnated here, what happens when we die, and can we die well? In other words, what should we be doing in the meantime? So what abilities do we have? What's our goal? What's the highest goal? So we're just figuring out how to play the video game. And one of the irrationalities about the current level of human species is no one asked that question. Not no one. Maybe less than a dozen. But thankfully, one of those people is the author of this book. So we are learning how to answer those questions and become the hero in the game by going through the hero's journey. And NPCs are those who are just following a script from their family that everybody has. Same catchphrases, same ideas, same shapes and colors that keep you on that NPC script, which we call fate. I'm going to adjust my fan. So escaping fate and finding our highest purpose or destiny. That's the game. Sorry for chat spam. I know you're right. What do you think about dreams? Well, again, the question should be, how do we understand dreams? Notice, all I'm doing is taking your questions that are about personal opinions, which is fine. That's how we're taught in our culture. What's your belief? Oh, interesting. Well, I believe something else. And we end up just nodding our head with people we agree with, who share the beliefs we already have, or dismissing and rejecting people who have different beliefs. Oh, you're an idiot. You're just a Mormon. You have magic Mormon underpants.
Gooner.
And you're a gooner. But that's dumb. That's for babies. What we want to understand is the truth. The truth is universal. For example, I was in a conversation with somebody recently about morality. And her position was, well, because people's opinions change, then morality changes. And my question to her was slavery ever good? And her response was, people's opinions about slavery has changed over the years. She didn't want to answer the question. That's the block. It's not that she couldn't, it's that her beliefs will be challenged with this new understanding. And it takes courage and character to let go of the beliefs that we identify with to learn and evolve. Of course, slavery is always bad. Just because you get 100 rich people in a room saying that it's good doesn't make it good. So she wanted to make the question about people's opinions. And my question was about truth. So that's what I do that a lot, because one of the most common beliefs of our age is there is no truth. That's what the establishment Democrats say. That's why they allow fascists to kill us. Because who's to say what's right and wrong? Isn't it all just a matter of opinion? And so long as I get my bag, I'm happy. There is no truth. It's all a matter of opinion. It's all a matter of perspective. What's true for you is true for you. What's true for me is what's true for me. So let's allow the fascists to kill all of us and take all of our resources and enslave us and murder us for fun and profit. And Epstein Island in sometimes. Bullshit. Bull fucking shit. That's the implications of belief. Belief leads to Armageddon because terrible people have terrible beliefs. And beliefs are not neutral. You function through your beliefs. You see through your beliefs. You impose your beliefs on others if you have power over others. That's how we think. Until we learn the difference between fourth hypothesis belief and third hypothesis understanding. Understanding is what is true. We don't want someone who believes they're dentist to do dentistry on ourselves. We want someone who's demonstrated an understanding of how dentistry works. Same thing for surgeons, same thing for architects, same thing for the pilots who fly our planes. However, we still smuggle in this idea that, well, apart from everything, beliefs are just as true as each other in the realm of politics, religion, and capitalism. The three groups of people who are currently ruling our society and causing mass genocide, murder, impoverishment, and the eventual destruction of our species through Armageddon. Because they are idiots who are holding on to beliefs and convince us that beliefs sometimes are just as good as understanding and truth. So when we ask questions about God, we're more likely to ask, what do you believe about God? Not, how do we understand the truth about the divine? That's a different question. One is bad, one is good. Same thing about dreams. It's not, what's your opinion of dreams? Who gives a shit? You want opinions about dreams? Listen to Joe Rogan, watch Oprah. All of these charlatans and grifters who have used beliefs and opinions to scam you from your money. We're not interested in beliefs and opinions. We're interested in understanding. So the question is, how do I understand the nature of my dreams? Whether or not it's communicating something intelligible to me? How do I listen to that communication? And how do I go ahead and apply that listening to my life to be able to remove A, my problems, and B, reach my goals? Verifying for myself through logos, through reason reflection through words, and through B, reflecting on that, turning about on that, using it myself in my direct experience. A and B. I'm getting a call. Hold on. Pause. China. The call was spam from China. So that's our A and B button. So that's what we use for truth, A and B. Logos and ousia. So, nothing personal. It's pretty much the first step in conversations with non-philosophers, with people who are not real philosophers, who are not Socratic or true, real thinking, using the logos, dialecticians. The first thing is to say, hang on a second, your conversation is about belief. Belief is for babies. Philosophers use understanding. Because belief is for babies. It's, oh, who do you believe? Oh, that guy. And that's why it's fate. That's why it's an NPC. You will pick the people who have the same shape and color as your parents. So you'll be attracted to someone who you think is beautiful based on your belief. So people end up marrying people just like their parents. Trump, a fascist, who lies constantly, who only does harm. One of the most unjust and blocked individuals ever. Lots of people in America support him because he reflects the shape and color of those they believed when they were little. Same thing for Christians. Their idea of Christianity isn't understanding. That's what we do from this book. We're understanding the nature of Christianity, the history of Christianity, the different people, their different level of vision, their different level of block, and their intention in writing the Gospels or banning the Gospels or adding their own interpretation. Modern Christians don't do any of that. They just believe a priest or pastor that reflects their image of what's believable. And then they tell them to vote Trump, and then the world ends. Interesting stream. Sorry if I spammed. Oh no, you're right. Did Socrates or Plato ever talk against slavery? it was common in Athens? Probably. I'd say that they probably did. I'm sure if I thought about it for a while, I could find some texts and quotes. Why do you ask? Why do you ask? Would it matter? Would it change slavery being wrong? I think their whole life has been a talk against slavery, because what they talk about is, how do we rule our soul? Are we ruled by beliefs, prejudices, religion, capitalists, Nazism? Or are we ruled by the dialectic and the logos? And the principle, as above, so below, this applies to everything. So does the most unjust aspect of our soul, our false beliefs, our pathologos, enslaving the rest of our soul, our planning part, our outward seeking part, our inward desiring part, the three aspects of our psyche, is that good? Or is that what it means to be a tyrant? So Plato used types of government as analogies. For example, the tyrannical soul, the democratic soul, second worst, the oligarchic soul, third worst, money seeking, the timocratic soul, fourth worst, honor seeking, warhawks, and of course the best, the philosopher king or queen, or the aristocratic soul, to be ruled by the best. It's an analogy. So yeah, follow the logos every time. You want to know what the nature of God is? Follow the logos. You want to know how to rule the city? Follow the logos. The spiritual quest or yoga? The logos. Many other staff bearers, the only true inspired mystics, are those that follow the logos through the power of the logos, called the dialectic. That's Socrates in the Phaedo. And in this book, he mentions the same thing. So we're demystifying mysticism. But also, in learning how to demystify mysticism, we're also recognizing why there are all these different spiritual traditions. Because everyone has a certain level of logos and ousia, understanding and vision, and also a certain level of pathologos, false belief about self and reality. So someone has an enlightened peak experience. They think, well, that's changed my life. I didn't even realize there was a non-physical dimension to reality. I'm going to start a group. I'm going to teach people about it. Have they done the work on mastering the dialectic to truly understand what they experienced? No, almost never. Have they used the dialectic to recognize that even that peak experience must have a cause higher than it? No. Have they done the work on their pathologos to examine the blocks to that learning and development, the blocks to the integration of the peak experience and going beyond it? Nope. That requires courage, character, and an awareness of philosophical midwifery. So, you get 100,000 different spiritual traditions based on 100,000 different individuals who have their 100,000 different interpretations of reality, mixed in with their, well, caused by their own specific pathologos, false beliefs. Therefore, if that's the case, what's the ideal? The dialectic. The use or the power of the logos to perfect your understanding, prepare yourself for higher visions or peak experiences, to use that understanding to make sense of that peak experience, not make sense of it with your dumb beliefs from childhood, and to reflect on that peak experience with understanding to realize it too must have a cause which transcends even experience. That's the self. And you can only do that if you are at the same time engaged in a relationship where you are reflecting on your false beliefs that surface to block that soul's journey. Objective, true, verifiable, necessary, Not opinion, not belief, not perspective. Purify what is false and perfect what is true. And that's what we've been doing here. So wonderful questions. Thank you for everyone asking that. Doing really great. To you we say...
It's awesome and it's gangster.
You're so gangster asking these questions. And that's what we've been doing. And we've come to learn from this book that you can map those stages of development of any soul or psyche with 5 fundamental stages. So I've been talking about the good ones. So we can take this physical world of shapes and colors and appearances and draw a line here. The realm of mind or being, so that which is eternal. So all of the principles that rule over our physical world have to have their existence in mind. Because they are eternal and causal, we call them the gods, because there's many of them. It's one experience, but we can recognize that within that experience there are parts. So that's intelligence, or being, or the model of reality, or the gods, because we can just personify them. They're not literally men in beards throwing lightning bolts. That's a personification of these principles that we can know ourselves. And so that's the, and then as we said, so this is where we can have our map. Human problems or ignorance are caused by our allegiance to our false belief. That's the 4th hypothesis, which we get from holes in the physical world. The whole of the family has a certain way of being. That's where we get it. And then we end up in a religion that's similar to our family way of being. And if you challenge it, if you ask questions, or you seek to go beyond the big dude, the leader, you go beyond what Jesus reached, or Muhammad reached, or Joseph Smith reached, or whatever cult leader reaches, they'll say to you,
How can you be this stupid? How is it legal? How is it legal?
they'll call you stupid. No, there will be 5, we've been learning is there are 5 kinds of, or archetypes in how they react. They will ignore you, they will mock you, they will threaten you, they will kick you out of the group, exile you, or they will murder you. So this is how we understand humans' savage reaction to truth that threatens their ignorance or belief. It's the 4th hypothesis. Now, that's the model as a whole, the model or a whole of everything, of self, reality, God, what's worth doing, how we play the game. That's the cause of our image thinking, the parts, the activity of our life. That's the 5th hypothesis. Image thinking. It functions to block your development of 3rd hypothesis, understanding. And as image thinking comes from the model of belief, so too understanding comes from the model of knowing. So there's our peak experience, the 2nd stage, or the 2nd hypothesis of Parmenides, who was Socrates' teacher, knowing or nous. There's pure ousia. Ousia, mind knowing itself completely, that's the peak experience. So there we have mind as the model or paradigm for reality, which is the experience as a whole of nous or knowing. Greek is the word for, nous is the Greek word for knowing. So we've demystified mysticness. It's just that experience. No, that's what it is. So we've talked about how our false beliefs, so one of the difficulties to this, even though what we're saying is true, verifiable, helps everyone, is necessary for our human survival, I don't have a 50,000 viewers like Hassan Piker or Asmongold on Twitch or YouTube. Why? It's what we're here for. It's how we play the game. It's how we remove our problems and reach our happiness. Doesn't everyone want to remove their problems? Doesn't everyone want to reach their highest goals? Doesn't everyone really want to understand what reality is and what the self is? The difficulty is, Very few people are open to understanding third hypothesis and have the courage and character to address their beliefs. Most people think they know it already. And as the oracle says,
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
because they stupided their way into it, or they are imitating the shapes and colors of their parents growing up when they were too young to know better and they were stuck in that house, dependent on them. Reasoning isn't going to remove it. That's why you need philosophical midwifery, which is the use of reasoning or dialectic to reflect on the cause of the beliefs. So it's a kind of a catch-22. The only way of removing human problems is dianoia, or understanding, or dialectic. The only way of reaching your excellence, the truth about self, reality, God, same thing, dianoia. The cause of human problems is that we violently oppose dianoia, to be savagely loyal to our beliefs. So it's a catch-22. You won't even listen. You're most likely going to ignore a philosopher or dialectician. Sometimes I get into conversations with people. The standard response is for people to make a joke at my expense. It's not personal, just the next stage of being blocked. And it's easy to make fun of of someone who's saying something different. Ha 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 ha. You think there's truth. Ha 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 ha. You think we can stop humanity from Armageddon. Ha 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 ha. We all disagree with him, don't we, team? That's the pile-on. That's right-wing humor. Being ignorant but smug about it, or cruel and smug about it. The Joe Rogan sphere. Threaten. Kicked out of the group. Had my fair share of that. Luckily haven't reached to being murdered yet. But that's the human being's response. So why is that? Because as we've been reading and learning for ourselves and hopefully testing out, we think we know better. That's belief. I had a rare comment on YouTube today. Someone who said, the highest idea of God is the self. That's your idea? I believe something else. Kind of funny. Yeah, everyone believes something else. This isn't a belief. You can't have this as a belief. You can't teach a child to believe that the highest idea of reality, the peak experience, the ultimate enlightenment experience, is self knowing itself. You can't do that. First of all, because it's not an object of belief, what image can you have of that which transcends images? What shape and color could that be? It's the thing that sees shapes and colors. This is the important fact. This is what human beings have to realize. There are different cognitive functions. Understanding is not the same as belief, you idiots. But also, there are different objects that can be perceived with those different cognitive functions. Another reason why you can't believe that God is self is the highest idea of God is because we all, as part of our reason for being reincarnated, develop a pathologos, sick belief about the self that's in direct opposition to it. Socrates has been explaining to us in this dialogue, that's why we're here to begin with. We were prevented from a greater spiritual journey. We all have a brilliant light experience. This is kind of well known already. The great light experience that people have in near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences or meditation experiences. That's second hypothesis. Socrates says you could go into it in greater depth. In fact, the depth to which you can experience that pure intelligence or brilliant light of being dictates the kind of character you have in your next reincarnation. But your journey is to not do that, but go through it. And that's just as Socrates is instructing Jesus to do in this very dialogue. So Jesus has had a second hypothesis light experience. Socrates has been saying, go through it. It has a cause. That cause is like it, as above, so below, the principle of likeness. So you can learn about it from that peak experience, but it has to be transcendent to it. Now, I think I might be being quite loud, so let me turn down 2 decibels. Let me see if that's a bit better. I seem to be peaking out when I'm getting animated. Oh, and then Socrates said this to Jesus, but then Jesus said this back to Socrates. Oh, can you believe it? Can you believe it?
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
All right. Thank you, Emma. Emma reminding us that she's cute. But that's not why we watch. Because she's smart. And kind-hearted. So, Socrates has been saying there's something that has prevented our further movement through spiritual realms of reality, and let me give you an example. If there was a beautiful girl that you want to talk to, but she was so beautiful that you get anxious, I'm not good enough to be in the presence of that goddess. Isn't that indicative of our problems? We project how she will think or feel before we even say anything, limiting our ability, keeping us on the path of fate or the NPC script we're in. Same thing for meaningful, beautiful or meaningful activities. But if this is beauty itself, any diminished idea of yourself that thinks you're not worthy or good enough for self-knowing itself as pure beauty or beauty itself, self-beauty, will limit your ability to participate in that intelligence, causing a diminished reincarnation between lifetimes, but also in this lifetime, because we want to have that peak experience. That's the model that we use in the activity of dialectic or understanding. The greater we know this, the greater we can perfect our dialectic. So if our condition for being here is a false image of the self that prevents our spiritual movement through higher dimensions of reality, giving us a reincarnation into time where we see we live in a world ruled by injustice, right? We personify belief and ignorance. Religion is opposed to understanding. Religion is known for killing and exiling and threatening people who just want to understand, because these fuckheads who want to play out their own individual beliefs as knowing, you have to have a group of people who have been taught to hate themselves, hate mind, or fear mind, fear the freedom of self, and fear their own understanding so they can become loyal to belief. That's the Abrahamic religion. The children of Abraham, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, are those who are willing to kill if God tells them to, or priest tells them to, or Netanyahu tells them to, or Trump speaking for Jesus tells them to. That's the human nature of human ignorance and savagery. And if these people, capitalists, clergy, conservatives, are currently ruling our society, we are living in injustice. So Hades or hell isn't a fiery pit of punishment used by these people to get you to fear your own development and think you need their leadership. It's earth, as we've been reading, because these people, the most unjust, are ruling. So that's the nature of human problems, societally speaking, planetarily speaking. So if that's the condition for our existence, you develop from your early childhood a pathologos belief of the self. That's the 10th hypothesis, defined in opposition to the true self. Even if it were possible to have a belief about self, you'd be blocked from it in principle. So this isn't a belief in God. That's religion. This is understanding. It can't be an object of belief. So if anyone tells you you are a this or a that, you are a small bean, you are a bad noodle, you can laugh and say, ha, that's just a belief. And don't you know, self is not an object of belief. And you can mog them, and they've been healthily mogged by you.
Jester goon maxed. Goon.
And gooning for some reason.
Now we're getting into extreme Jordan Peterson levels of whimsy.
Yes, we are. And spammer in chat.
The internet is all robots.
It's all robots.
Slop.
Crap. Yeah, it's slop for you.
This
in
guy
chat.
has found something beyond slop.
That's you, spammer. So, this map gives us what we're supposed to be doing, therefore, as human beings. And I was talking about also why it's difficult to hear about this. Because
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who then?
See, your ignorance on false beliefs have an effect over you because you take them as your first hypothesis idea of self, your second hypothesis acceptable states of mind, and your third hypothesis way of functioning in the world. So it's the triad of self, existence, power, functioning. All things have those three qualities. That's why it's the archetyped for the gods. Anything that exists has to exist, has to have a power that allows it to have an activity. We have fourth hypothesis belief that takes the place out of them. So very few people are interested in this channel or what we do here because I already think I know the self. It's my belief of self. It's the image that stars in my thoughts, my fantasies, my tangents, my dreams. It's the main character in all those movies in my mind. I already know what reality or mind is. And I already know how to think. You don't have to learn how to think. You just know how to think. Whoop. You know, it's not an art you have to practice or skill you have to master. Yeah, everyone can think. Yeah, there's no, hey, crazy crackhead Bill over there. Hey, welcome, Brian, the Guire. That crackhead crazy person preaching about Jeebus is just as clever as that scientist doing the science. Their ability to think is equally in the same. So they should all vote for who should be in charge. Bullshit. It's a skill. But again, very few people are willing to go through the reading. You have to read. There's our activity, reading. Certain books that are complete and intelligible and reflect the logos, so you don't have to project, fill in the gaps with your own beliefs. When you are interpreting things that are not there, projecting, that's a clue about your false beliefs that you're carrying that prevents your reading. We can take that whole thing, reading without interpretation, Apollo. See, that's the gods. It helps you unify an idea. That's Apollo. But you have to be Aphrodite, bringing those parts into a whole, bringing the harmony that we love through understanding into a meaningful whole, making sure it works, testing it out in your life, reflecting it on it with your friends over coffee. Cheers. Parts and whole. And as you do that, you reach the highest stage of, what is it? Activity, power, or inspiration, and existence. Our highest state of existence, Hermes, represents the dialectic. And as Socrates has been saying, without which you will utterly fail, like a cow that tries to eat the hay but trips over on her udders. She utterly failed.
You just attacked my person. You just harmed my body.
With that joke, that wasn't that bad, was it?
They're a weirdo.
Oh my goodness. So that's why only people who are very intelligent and who are learning the courage and character to go through this process will be interested in what we do here. What we're supposed to be doing is therefore developing our third hypothesis understanding by Apollo, Aphrodite, and Hermes, reading together, reflecting on it together, and recognizing that that act of reading is the same dialectic. That's the meaning of life that solves problems. It's also how we read. It's the structure behind how Socrates has been talking to Jesus. It's the structure behind how the author has written this book. In fact, all great works of art follows that dialectical process. It's the structure and power of the logos. As we do that, we will have images that distract us. This isn't worth doing. I can't goon to that guy.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
Be a reasonable gooner.
Be a reasonable gooner.
That's right, you should only goon in a reasonable way, says the oracle. I spelled coffee. Yeah. What the hell was I talking about? Right. So reading, surfacing the image thinking that distracts you. I can't do this. I'm a small bean. I'm a bad noodle. You can't know reality. God doesn't exist. God does exist, but he's like a Christian thing or whatever, or he's a Muslim thing, or he's a Mormon thing that has magic underpants.
Goon.
Because they do soaking, which is weird, but
Gooners.
that's gooners. We take notes of the problems because fifth hypothesis is our activity that opposes our goodness. This is why we're savage. The best people are the ones that we respond negatively to. But hey, we allow Hitler and Netanyahu to do the worst atrocities and people say, well, that's just business as usual. Someone comes along and speaks up against it, Socrates. It's a byproduct from our evolution where those that were blindly loyal to tribe leader before we had self-reflection and language never ventured out of the cave. Everything outside of the cave was bad and scary, so they never got eaten by saber-toothed tigers. Those were the humans that evolved. Now we have to address that. It's a solution that no longer applies because now that's just flat out racism. That's Nazism. That's America first. That's Israel first. That's religion. Everything outside my clan is bad and wrong and scary. And challenging dear leader is the worst sin you can commit. That's the nature of human problems in a nutshell. Because everything we do or act has as its source belief. So we don't have to address individual actions. We can address this source of all human actions by looking at those fifth hypothesis problems that surface to block the logos and our development of understanding. That puts us on the chair. Sit on a chair, I've got a problem. I've got a problem and I can't solve it. This is why it requires courage. You've got to stop pretending you know what your problems are and how to solve them. If you could solve your problems, you wouldn't have them. That means to admit you're ignorant. That's philosophical ignorance or being stung. That's a good state, aporia in the Greek. I'm puzzled and confused because I know I don't know. That's fifth hypothesis. Then you have to sit on that chair reflecting on what are the beliefs that you don't even know you have. You just think it's common sense. That's why the Republican capitalists and religious people say, it's just common sense. To you, that's your fourth hypothesis beliefs. Now, because you can't solve your problems, or your beliefs cause a block to the understanding that you need to have to solve your problem, you're in a catch-22. Humans are opposed to solving human problems because that's the definition of a human problem. If it didn't block your ability to understand and solve problems, it wouldn't be much of a block. Therefore, you're sitting on that chair, wondering about your beliefs in that open, curious state of mind, following a dialectician, third hypothesis, sometimes called a midwife. The midwife better not be carrying his own false beliefs about what's good and real and true. They better be reflecting on the truth about reality, goodness, beauty, and justice. That's the second hypothesis. So we've got the fifth hypothesis person examining his fourth hypothesis belief with the third hypothesis dialectician reflecting on the model of truth and reality, the second hypothesis. All in pursuit of the removal of the pathologos self and the discovery of the true self, which is our purpose. So that's how we're supposed to be participating in these 5 stages. In other words, they're not just a single stage that you're in. It's states of mind you can move in and out of. You can be doing the dialectic and then all of a sudden be triggered into your false beliefs and problems. You can move in and out of them. So why aren't we all doing them? Why don't I have 50,000 viewers like Hassan Parker and Asmongold? Because that would be participating in all of these states of mind or stages of the soul's development with the self logos, following the logos. Recognizing that self, the first hypothesis, casts a shadow into peak experience, the greatest experience, which is intelligence itself, which is also itself the paradigm for existence. And that's what creates each moment in time. Keeping this next moment, my t-shirt doesn't suddenly become blue in the next frame, like 30 something frames per second. It's reality flashing, giving us the illusion of movement or change. But it also keeps together our problems and our goals. But also communicates to us from the gap between frames if we learn how to listen in a way that benefits us. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a just reality. If you recognize that, then you recognize that you are seeking to follow that intelligible communication called providence. That's the intelligent care called providence. We only can listen if we learn the dialectic or follow the logos. So really, a dialectician isn't leading the conversation technically, even though he's following the logos as it unfolds, meaning it's effortless, meaning you can be in the zone. Without effort or planning, completely respond most appropriately to the situation. Not by sinking 3-pointers, like some people get in the zone when they play sport, but in a way that benefits the self and the soul's development. That's our excellence or justice. So if we're not participating in these 5 according to the self logos, that means we've got a block to any one of them. Therefore, the kinds of human problems, we mentioned earlier today that Plato had the tyrannical soul, the democratic soul, the oligarchic soul, the timocratic soul, all underneath as kinds of sick souls. He said this isn't actually governments. Socrates said in the Republic. I'm just using them as a metaphor. This isn't about government. I mean, it does apply because of as above, so below, but we're talking about souls. Talk about 4 classes of sick souls in principle beyond the philosopher king. But what we are recognizing is how can we make sense of that with the logos? Therefore, a block would be in opposition to any one of those 4 things that are required to reach the first hypothesis. So you can't participate that if you think there is no meaningful activity in the physical world. You're a nihilist or you're black-pilled. Or if you think there are no parts, everything is delusion. How the hell can you pay attention to the thoughts you get if you think it's all just illusion, if you're black-pilled? That's nihilism. That's the 9th. The most lonely and sad. The most in need for a philosopher to have this awareness and talk with them. Hey, let's explore an idea. What ideas are you curious about? Where are you at in terms of your ideas or vision of self? Or where are you stuck? What difficulties have you been noticed that you have repetitively? Those are only 2 questions you can ask someone. Where are you at or where are you stuck? Technically, you can ask a third, what are your dreams like? Because dreams give messages about both. And if we can therefore relate to such a person in a caring way, not trying to manipulate them, not seeking an opportunity to play our belief idea of Noah and shit on them or abuse them or put them down the way your parents did to you, that's your fate, that's injustice, the appearance of virtue. I want to be the one shouting at the street that you're going to hell. I want to be the one punishing someone like my daddy and mummy did to me. Nope, that's the nature of human injustice. But if you can relate to them in a way that doesn't do that, it's not a blame or shame or clip chimping or punishment game. That might be the first person they've ever experienced functioning in a good way in their entire lives. That might be enough to make them question their own belief that there's nothing meaningful because they just engaged in something meaningful, a meaningful activity in the physical world. Therefore, there are certain states of mind or stages of the soul's development that require a second person. It's not a solo quest. That's why I do my best to talk to people on this channel, online, IRL. But as we do talk, we can recognize these 1, 2, 3, 4 classes of the 5th pathologo self that blocks the participation in the 1, 2, 3, 4 qualities that lead to the actual self. But as we do that, we have to recognize it's not just truth, it's truth and humanness. There is a human reaction to new truth that challenges our personal beliefs. Also 5 categories. The 5 stages of interpretation, which means, well, the 5th one, just completely reject anything new or true that you disagree with. That's debate. That's belief. Well, I don't think that. I'm not interested. That's why we don't ask questions about belief here. We ask questions about truth and understanding. If you want to reject it, even though it's been proven true, that's your problem that you should look to. Not as a way of feeling bad about yourself, as a gift, as gold nuggets to mine for insight. When did I reject something true or rational, or my own conclusion, or my own experience and insight? 4th level of interpretation, to not completely reject it, but just offer your own beliefs. Yeah, I like what you're saying about stopping Armageddon, but I think we should... that can only be stopped if we all accept Jesus. I heard the PBD podcast that R.M. Brown talks about sometimes.
If you don't know, now you know.
And now you know about R.M. Brown. He's funny.
It makes sense.
If I say he's funny, I make sense.
She's a moron. She's a bonked on the head individual, BHI.
I coined that.
Who is?
Please end kink shaming on your show.
He should end kink shaming on his show. So there's this right-wing con artist grifter called PBD who apparently has a following online. And on a recent episode, one of his lackeys said, "Hey, the only way we can stop this war against Iran is if everyone comes to Jesus." That's 4th level of interpretation. Offering your own dumb beliefs in place of the truth. Now, as you evolve out of that and you realize that's not actually helping you learn anything, 3rd, you might take a little piece. I like what he's saying about understanding, but can we just use that understanding to be better Mormons?
Goon, 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 goon.
Because I like to goon with my magic underpants and soaking.
Be a reasonable gooner.
They need to be a reasonable gooner. That taking a piece of the new and adding it to the old is the third stage of interpretation. Second, you're a bit more evolved than that. By the way, that's the Kabbalah. Taking a piece of philosophy, the Parmenides, and adding it to the Sephardic religious tradition. So, second, I like this new idea of logos, but I also I feel rude to say that beliefs are bad. I like the third hypothesis, understanding, but I feel like it's impolite to say that beliefs are bad, because what about my mummy and daddy's? Those racist beliefs, sure, they're bad, and sexist beliefs, sure, and religious extremists, sure. And conservative religion, conservative politics, yeah. But some beliefs, can't we keep some? That's the second level of interpretation. Meaning, there's this section of truth that doesn't overlap with belief, like the understanding that belief is the cause of our problems, that we have to then apply these. So to this level of truth that threatens my level of interpretation, second, am I going to ignore that? Ignore that stuff about the cause of human problems? Ignore that stuff about midwifery? Am I going to mock it? You think you're so smart and clever? You're so arrogant, ha 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 ha. With you trying to recognize that you can solve all human problems? You haven't met the crazy people. If you met my Uncle Joe, you wouldn't think all problems are solvable. And then the Republicans clap. Threaten. Don't you say about that. The government will get you. Jesus will get you. The market will get you. You'll be homeless if you question the CEO. You'll be assassinated if you question the conservatives. You'll go to hell if you question the religious. You'll be put in prison if you question the police. See? All of the systems of belief-based ignorance and oppression have a way of vilifying anyone who questions it and has their appropriate name to vilify. You're a heathen. You're a, what do the capitalists say? You're a, I don't know, welfare queen, or you're lazy. Religious, heathen, heretic, goyim, infidel. Conservatives, you're a lib. You're a blue-haired lib. You're a woke. Oh, caring for people is woke, says Joe Rogan to Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, who has the Palantir that's being used to murder children all over the world through AI-directed weapons. The Epstein experience, formerly the Joe Rogan experience. So we have, you might try and exile. Don't invite him over. Don't listen to him. He can't be a member of our group. He's not a true America First. He's not a true MAGA for this part of truth that conflicts with my level of interpretation. And of course, human history has its pages soaked in blood, because killing is acceptable currently as a way of silencing truth that conflicts with the beliefs of the fascist currently in charge. Be it Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, capitalists, be it whoever religious authority that wants to do another genocide, or whatever right-wing conservative group that wants to do a similar thing. Therefore, and the left wing isn't doing anything good either. We need to understand that this would be the true model for guiding our soul and our humanity and our society. Ultimately, we want to get to the first stage of interpretation, which transcends. So this is the thing about the map. We have 4 stages of activity that we mentioned. The movement from ignorance to wisdom. But the goal transcends all of that, because it's the cause of all of those things. Cause and effect. Everything that has an effect or an experience has a cause. That cause has to be superior, independent, and prior. That's why any idea of God that you have that has a characteristic, you can always ask the question, what is its cause? That cause has to be transcendent, superior, and prior. Just as of the 4 categories of pathologos, the ultimate pathologos transcends all of them. So to be completely free of your problem, that would mean not only do you have to address your specific pathologos, your puzzle, your human puzzle, the puzzle you've been in your whole current life, which is, by the way, culmination of all of your past reincarnations. So you don't have to do past life therapy or regression, because your current life is a perfect representation of all of the forces upon your soul, even through multiple lifetimes. Not only do you have to address your certain specific problem, again, on the seat with a dialectician, ideally looking at your dreams. That's the best kind of midwifery. Oh, and also because your dreams have high experiences, it's both the purification of problems and the perfection of your highest experience. It's the spiritual tradition and it's the healing tradition. That's why it's the best. That's why Socrates says it's the standard. It's the standard. If we look at all philosophers throughout history, the standard for who reached the highest level are those who recognize the significance of dreams. So far, there's been 3 that I'm aware of: Homer, Socrates, and Pierre Grimes. Pierre Grimes died a few years ago, but fucking genius. Gift to humanity. Little over like 2 to 3,000 years before him, Socrates, and 2 to 5,000 years before Socrates, Homer. So interesting how there's a big jump, but it's getting shorter. Big jump to Socrates, and then a smaller jump to Pierre, and then even smaller jump with the internet to the rare birds that maybe you will come across this channel, and stay with it and never give up. So not only do you have to address your own particular problem, but the idea or principle of problems themselves. See how the game works? You have the perfection and the purification, the positive hypotheses and the negative hypotheses. And they follow the same structure. Meaning your goal isn't just to have the greatest possible peak experience of truth, reality, beauty, that's the second hypothesis, but to use your understanding you've developed along the way because you've been addressing your problems or ignorance in midwifery to reflect even on that peak experience and go beyond it to the principle of the self itself. If you've lived this life, if you've had this relationship, if this has guided your relationships, your activities, your fun, the streamers that you watch on Twitch or YouTube, you have to ask the question, what if this is all the logos, the intelligibility that we can participate in that makes us smart and caring? What is that self-logos? What is the principle of the self-logos, the principle or axiom or first cause that transcends all of it? Just as to be free of your problems, you have to be, well, first of all, doing this so you can be doing a meaningful enough activity to surface the extent of your problems. If you give up and just live a comfortable life going along with the flow, a life of mediocrity, you won't surface the blocks. You won't have the material to surface the problem you've literally been born here to address. So you have to be doing this anyway. But also for the reason, if you're not learning and understanding, you are not learning and understanding the principle of the pathologos. And if you are not functioning as a dialectician, helping those who listen to you, who are open, if someone is genuinely interested in reading and addressing their problems, often they've shown that they've shown an interest in self-development before. They're open to challenging their beliefs because they really want to master this text or reach a goal. They're somewhat familiar with these concepts, a little bit. If that sort of person shows themselves, again, rare, you have an opportunity to practice what you're here to practice. The dialectic, to be a dialectician, to follow the logos in that art of helping a soul in their development. making you more like the divine. Allowing you to have insights into how problems work. So you, as functioning as a dialectician, are learning about the principle of pathologos itself. And as we're saying, to be completely free of your problem, you don't just have to, it's not enough to know your pathologos, but you have to know or the cause of your pathologos, the origin of your pathologos, but the origin of problems themselves. The principle of the pathologos, where it came up for us in humanity, and what purpose it serves. Otherwise, you could walk away thinking, well, reality is cruel. It gives us ignorance. It gives us problems. God is a torturing God, just like the Bible says. God is an ignorant, jealous, petty God, like the Bible. We seek justice. We want to know how reality is just. So ultimately, we need to gain a mastery of the 10th hypothesis, the pathologos self. This is the hypothesis that we are suspecting Socrates is saying we needed to add to the 9. You can have Socrates' teacher, Parmenides, gives a breakdown of these first 5 and 4 of the negative ones. The 9 hypotheses of Parmenides. And we have a Balboa translation, so for the first time we're able to read it properly, without the interpretation of translators getting in the way. So if you learn about Plato and Socrates from anything other than the Balboa translation, you are learning bullshit. In principle, because every translator has, again, their own level of development of the logos and level of problems of their pathologos. Therefore, for it to be genuine, they better be studying with a master of the self-logos, as Juan Balboa did, and doing the work on their dreams and their pathologos, which he was doing. So this gives us the 5 stages of our soul's development and states of mind we can move in and out of, and how we should be functioning with it, most ideally. Looking for that chair, examining your dreams, being a dialectician, contemplating reality, and all the while wondering about what is watching this happen. So you can carry a question. The whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking, what's that? What's that mind? Oh, and what's watching that right now? That's how we should be functioning. Also, using the same map, we can recognize the 4 categories of human ignorance and its principle, the 10th hypothesis. We can recognize that as we go through this development and the addressing of that pathologos, we have 5 stages of interpretation we go through as human beings. And our negative reaction to what is true and challenging that level of interpretation as we address that class of human problem, and we progress through that stage. Our response, one of these 5. So therefore, you can use this here, use these 4 here to as a kind of checklist, like a personality test, like on the internet. What Twilight character are you? What Pokemon are you most like? Like that, but like real. Oh, I sprained my collarbone or something. It's so sore. So whenever I breathe in or laugh, it hurts.
Drop the attitude, man.
I'm sorry, but it's sore.
What the hell's wrong with you people? You sick freaks.
Why, I'm sorry.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
My soundboard is being harsh for me for being injured. So you could do this. You could say, hey, what stage of development am I currently in? You know what? I'm really into the 4th hypothesis. I'm really identified with my religion or my family clan or whatever belief I have. I haven't done enough work in midwifery. I've done enough to be able to recognize what class of problem, what is it that prevents me from my further development? What class of problem do I have? You know what? I'm an 8th hypothesis person. I think there are physical things, but nothing more. Everything can be explained with biology and evolution and chemicals. Even a beautiful painting can be reduced to $5 of paint on a $10 canvas. There's nothing meaningful. Even love is just serotonin and endorphins. I can reduce everything to its smallest parts. And so any suggestion of there being problems as a whole that is solvable, I reject. Or excellence as a whole, that is the human principle of excellence or truth or justice or beauty, I reject that. So I'm eighth hypothesis, a rejection of wholes in the physical world, materialist or nihilist. But you know what I am learning? So I'm still alive, I still come across every now and again something that challenges that. So when I come across something that shows that problems are solvable or excellence is objective and reachable, what do? I don't just completely reject it. You know what? I used to say, well, actually, materialism is, haven't you heard of evolution? It's survival of the fittest. I used to offer my own personal beliefs as an alternative to anything new, but I don't do that anymore. I've grown, I've matured. Now what I do is take a little bit of something new, but I try and make sense, I try and explain it with evolutionary theory all the time and only. Now, we're not rejecting evolution here, of course. We recognize the evolutionary early causes and survival benefits of our pathologos. But it's not just evolution. If there is evolution, there has to be a goal that it's seeking and conditions and causes that allows evolution to happen beyond the physical world. So I don't do that anymore. I don't just explain everything with evolution. No, I do. I used to, offer my materialism instead, but actually I'm in the third interpretation. I only take a piece of the new. I take a piece of anything new and add it to my old beliefs of materialism. So here I am in number 3. And so what do I do to reject all of the other things that threaten my 4th hypothesis level of development and my 8th hypothesis problem state and to stay in that 3rd level of interpretation? Well, someone comes up with all those ideas, I just kick them out. I say, you don't belong here. You're not a true Christian or a true America First or a true patriot. I use that kind of language. I do exile language. I get around and I say, hey, that Jessica, she has some dangerous ideas. I don't think she should be a Pony Club member. I think we should kick her out of the group. I don't think we should talk to her anymore because the ideas that she has challenges my, see? So any person can map with these 4 categories what kind of what was the development? What kind of anime, what kind of One Piece character you are based on your development towards getting the One Piece. What's a negative thing? What kind of friends character you are. What kind of problem you have, because none of them are doing philosophy. Interpretation. What kind of Pokemon you are, I suppose. No. That one last. Interpretation. What is interpretation? What are those personality tests like? Oh, yeah, interpretation. What Hogwarts group you're in? Are you Gryffindor? Whoops. Are you Gryffindor? Are you Slytherin? Are you Hufflepuff? Or are you... Fuck. Ravenclaw. So, back to the map. What, Oh, Jesus. What One Piece character you are in your development? What Friends character from that TV show level of problem do you have? Are you a Monica fascist? Or are you a Joey nihilist? What kind of interpretation do you do? Are you Slytherin? Are you Ravenclaw? Are you Hufflepuff? Or are you Gryffindor? And what kind of Pokemon are you? How do you fight back against truth that challenges your problems? Do you ignore them like a Snorlax? Do you mock them like a Mr. Mime? Do you threaten them like a Rhydon? Do you kick them out of the group like a... Who has the ability to kick out of fighting Pokemon, send them back? Abra. Or do you kill them like the evil Pokemon Blastoise? No, he's not evil. Whoever's the bad guy in Pokemon. So you can do a personality test. That's how you can understand where you're at and how you're functioning. Because that's a lovely map. So there we go. Has that been fun? Is it worth the reading? It's a fun book anyway. Having fun. Again, logos, that's just understanding. Usia. Test it. Otherwise, hell, you know whether it's true. Now, this gives us a handy map to understand where we are in the book. Because we can therefore recognize where Jesus is at. He has had a second hypothesis peak experience, which made him think he was the second coming, literally. Because he hasn't done any, well, he's done some, because he did study with some Hellenic philosophers in his early life, but he hasn't done enough work in his third hypothesis to understand it. So he used his ignorance or belief and image thinking to make sense of his peak experience. I am Elijah. So he identified with Elijah, and he went through all that rigmarole of cosplaying the Noah, coming into town on a donkey and all that stuff. And therefore seeking to be the king of the Jews and not saying that he wasn't, and then getting crucified for it. So, second hypothesis peak experience, blocked from understanding, falling into his fourth hypothesis beliefs. And we can even see his life playing out in this conversation. This is the power of the dialectic. Socrates is asking him to reflect on his peak experience with understanding, and it's caused his fall into him being a dick, his problem state, his pathologo state of mind. I believe in God, and I'm never going to be able to connect with you, Socrates, because our beliefs are different, and it's all about beliefs, and I'm the chosen people, and I'm the zealots, and you're the different, and bullshit. Now, this, at the end of the text, the one time that stood out to us that Socrates said no. Usually he's been encouraging his reflection on ideas, ignoring nonsense, and picking out the good idea. Yes, that idea, let's take with that and roll with it. But this is the time saying, no, I'm not rolling with the state of mind. No to the state of mind. No, that's not your problem. The problem isn't who believes the right and wrong thing. That's beliefs. And what do we say? Beliefs are for babies.
That's anti-feminist in some way.
I was hoping she would say you're a little baby.
You actually are too stupid to interact with the rest of the world. You should literally be in a labor camp for the rest of your life.
You should be in the mines for the rest of your life. You should lose the right to vote because you're such a fucking idiot.
What? Beliefs are for babies. They're for babies. You want to believe someone else? Why? Because the Pope has a funny hat. Because my daddy's big and strong. Because my priest has tassels. Or my imam has tassels. Because Daddy Trump knows what's best. Babies. Babies. Literally, you are in arrested development. You are still in that cognitive function you were supposed to leave as you leave the house. Baby brain. Beliefs. Baby brain. Also, monkey brain. It's primitive. Again, survival mechanism, or all problems are solutions that no longer applied. So it's not a blame game. you surviving your family is just like those early evolution, after the asteroid hit and killed all the dinosaurs, we evolved very quickly, and those humans who had not yet reached logos stage of reflection survived if they were blindly loyal to their tribe leader and afraid of everything outside the cave. Now it's just blindly loyal to Trump and afraid of brown people or women's or immigrants or Muslims. Bullshit. Baby-brained or primitive brained. So he got into his baby brain state. Does Jesus here? Now what's interesting is, now Socrates is doing a little bit of midwifery. We've gone from exploring the truth about the gods, because Jesus rejected that. He ignored it, or he exiled his own conclusion that gods are not literal, and literalism is the cause of human suffering. It's when literalists, I literally believe the Bible, and the Bible says we can kill whoever we want. I literally believe the founding fathers. I literally believe in Adam Smith, free market solves everything. Bullshit. Literalists are stupid. The Hellenic Greeks called them barbarians. He's seen this earlier in the text, and he's seen that the gods are actually personifications of these very understandable principles that we need to understand to survive and flourish. He's already seen this. So when he throws away or exiles, this is his Pokemon, he's doing an Abra, what he's seeing to completely reject Slytherin interpretation, the conversation on the table, because Socrates is introducing third hypothesis, understanding. So if the first hypothesis is Luffy, second would probably be Shanks, Zoro. Should probably have a woman in here. Who's a good woman character in One Piece? They're not as badass. They're just more like eye candy, aren't they? All right, we'll make second Zoro, and we'll have third as Shanks, because Shanks is the best, and he's understanding. So by asking him to do a Shanks or third level of interpretation as his One Piece character, we've recognized that his problem is seventh hypothesis, friend's character. So nihilist would be Ross. No, nihilist would be Joey, I guess. Materialist would be Ross. Monica would be the seventh hypothesis because she's a bit of a Nazi sometimes. And sixth hypothesis would be, I guess, Phoebe. Open to understanding, but her spirituality isn't grounded in truth. It's a bit of a reach. You can find your own. And if you do find your own, share them in the chat below or on the Discord. Now it's interesting because it's seventh, which is a rejection of understanding, which might have made sense of how he didn't participate in understanding in his life to make sense of his peak experience, which is the peak experience in the Gospel of Mark. Remember, Mark wrote the story of Jesus, Luke and Matthew copied him, John is the other gospel writer, and he followed Paul, who wanted to reject Jesus by saying, Jesus' story isn't a cautionary tale about using belief to make sense of your peak experience, which causes a disaster. It's a cautionary tale against belief and a message about understanding. No. It's actually, belief is good actually, because 200 years after they added and Jesus magicked from the dead. He didn't sacrifice anything really because he got his life back. And he didn't learn anything actually because magic. So faith is good actually, slaves. That's Paul, someone who murdered people for fun. he would be on Epstein Island if he was around today. Paul. Modern Christians believe Paul. John supported him. This is all stuff we've seen in the book already. This is just a review. So, like Paul, like modern Christians, rejecting understanding and rejecting the third hypothesis, everything we've said today, that there is a first cause that is intelligible in a unique way that transcends even peak experience. The peak experience is the shadow of self. That's the paradigm, and the peak experience of what's knowable. Intelligibility itself, which is the map and paradigm that self uses to create time, or the third hypothesis. Therefore, as human beings functioning in time, the mastery of the third hypothesis, Shanks, as your One Piece character, is our greatest activity, mastering Haki, which is actually interesting because there's a lot of actual similarities between breathwork and energy and making use of breath energy and sexual energy and psychic energy, as Shanks does for his Haki, which is maybe something we can talk about in the future. Often you can see little tidbits of true spirituality seeping into anime and mythology. There you go. So the dialectical understanding, which is also being like the self. If the self uses intellect to create each moment in an intelligible way, giving us the messages we need to solve our problems and reach our excellence, then we too can be like the self, which is our ultimate goal, to know the self. If we also participate in the dialectic, we are being like the self. So there's our method. The dialectic, therefore, is the spiritual method or yoga in principle. Recognizing that, you can see that whatever spiritual tradition you examine, you can actually impress your friends by seeing how it takes aspects of the third as a third interpretation, as a piece onto their religious or spiritual tradition, a piece on the coat. So you like the Kabbalah? Oh, it takes a piece of the Parmenides and rejects everything else. Third interpretation. You like Taoism? Oh, it takes a piece in the second hypothesis, but again, rejects the logos. And you might find out that what makes them all the same is that they don't understand their own problems and reality. So there you go. For you to explore. So, what we're saying about the providential nature of the self through the second hypothesis to us in time, from greater to lesser, to help us remove our problems, which are ignorance, fourth and fifth, through no sort of punishment, no sort of abuse, no sort of insulting. That would be fucking stupid. Create a reality just to insult you. Why did God create a reality of sinners just to make hell to punish us? It doesn't fucking make sense. But to be providential is to create the conditions and facilitate self-reflection and understanding. That's the dialectic. Seventh hypothesis rejects that understanding of the logos and says, actually, there are only two forces, the good guys and the bad guys, and they don't touch, so no providence. And you can only win the battle by killing the other team. So no dialectic, no learning, no education, just bombing people and stealing their shit. Therefore, the kind of God that these people come up with, the most common idea in our world currently, is a God that's a historical force, moving a chosen people through time, and it's blessing the people they like and cursing those who'd curse them. And its highest vision of reality is they're in charge of the world. So the Jews that are doing genocide because the Palestinians oppose them. They are giving praise to America because America is facilitating that genocide. And their idea of God is, oh, God said that we get to kill people and take their shit and rule the land. Christians, same. Muslims, same. And I bet you'll find 1,000 cults like that.
Goon, 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 goon.
Even the gooning cult of the Mormons with their soaking and magic underpants.
They're like a goon. They're a gooner.
They feel like a goon and they're a gooner.
This is why I love this channel, man.
Because of gooning.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
You are a gooner.
Hey, whoa, don't, that's a scary voice, man. Don't do that. Hey, my kids watch this.
Oh, your kids do? Oh my goodness. So, interesting, isn't it, that the class of Jesus's pathologos, seventh hypothesis, an eternal battleground between the forces of good from God and the forces of evil from Satan, leading to Armageddon, blow up the world so finally the war is won. That's used to justify punishment, which is used to justify violence and oppression, which is used to oppress, enslave humanity, injustice. Or we have to enslave these people. Why? Because they're just bad. Hang on a second. Are they just doing crime because you have systematically oppressed them and they don't have a way of meeting their material needs? No, they're just evil in their hearts. Haven't you seen all the Jewish posts on Instagram about how Palestinians are savage animals? Yeah, but that's just to justify the genocide that you were actually wanting. Because you're blindly obeying Netanyahu as your tribe leader. And you accept a God that has you as the chosen people and everyone else is just cattle or goyim. And that dehumanization is a way of justifying, therefore, punishment, which is needed to smuggle in the idea of how a country doing a genocide is the most moral army. You certainly can't help people. So, the most common worldview and the most fucking savage worldview, seventh hypothesis, is the most dangerous because it opposes understanding. So we talked about human problems being a catch-22. Human problems are defined by a block to understanding, which is needed to solve human problems. Therefore, you're in a catch-22. Therefore, you need dreams and you need a dialectician. So while you pay $60 million to LeBron for doing slam dunks, why don't you pay $70 million for a dialectician who can actually help people solve their problems, both in this lifetime and beyond? Just a suggestion. Would make my life a bit easier. There you go. So even worse than that is a kind of problem that is specifically defined in opposition to that very thing you need to develop. Therefore, when fascists get in charge, what do they go after? Liberals, thinkers, leftists. Antifa, anti-fascists, who are trying to stop fascists, what do the fascists do? Blame all of their own crimes on Antifa. What does Israel do? Orchestrate, fund Hamas, so they have a boogeyman they can use to justify anything bad we did. It's we're the victims because Hamas. Didn't you create and do him and organize Hamas's attacks? Yes, but shut up. 9/11. Hang on a second. How did 3 towers fall down with only 2 planes? And how come the guys who were running it had terrorist insurance that they put out a week before? And how come they weren't at the building that one day? And how did... Shut up. Because we need a boogeyman to justify punishment that we've bought into. So who does Trump and Netanyahu go to? The Jews and the Christians, because they already have a worldview of the seventh hypothesis. So we are not being unjust and murderous thieves. No, we are doing God's work. Literally, that's what they say. Whether or not they actually believe it themselves or they're manipulating people who did, that's the worldview that we currently are under. So isn't it interesting that Jesus' problem, both in his life and in this conversation, wasn't that he wasn't open to a peak experience. He had that. Very rare, unique amongst his friends. It was that he didn't understand it because his religious worldview was the seventh hypothesis. Some Jewish shit. Abrahamic shit. And it's also playing out in this conversation. So here's an example of somebody living their life in a certain way that caused or that maintained the problem that they're experiencing in their afterlife. So being able to talk to Socrates, he's still facing that same block he didn't address in his lifetime. Therefore, we can conclude this is the meaning of life once again. Not just for our life, but in whatever we encounter beyond, we need to have, as we said, an ability to participate in that brilliant light So a removal of our pathologos and a development of understanding of the true self. An ability to go beyond through that light as like a gateway to the self to escape the prison of reincarnation. As above, so below. As our lifetime, so to our death time. As Socrates says in the Phaedo, to live well is to learn how to die well. And as Pierre Grimes added, by the way, to live well is to die many times before they finally bury you. Because as Socrates says in the Phaedo, the separation of the soul from the body is the death experience. Only you come back. So we have to learn. And that's where we are in the text. He is discussing Zoro. His peak experience, his Zoronoa from One Piece, second in command from Luffy. Socrates is being Shanks in understanding and saying, hey, if there is a second in command, there must be a cause, there must be a Luffy who needs to be king of the pirates. Jesus is saying, no, he fell from Zoro into fourth hypothesis. He is being, who is a bad person? Blackbeard? The cause of human problems, I guess, would be Blackbeard, as personify that. Who's that magma guy? He's pretty mean. Who's that sniper? What's his name? God, Sniper God. What's his name? No, it should be a bad guy. So Blackbeard. And now we're addressing his, the nature of his problem, which is his idea of reality, is how he functions. So right now he's fighting back against Socrates, who's only trying to help him, but also his highest idea of God. So your current, each of these hypotheses are how you make sense of yourself, reality, God, meaning of life. It's the whole thing. So that's where we are. And let's jump in, because needed for the seventh hypothesis, you need a God, your highest idea of God, that's at war with the cause of human problems. And of course, the dialectic shows us the nature of human problems is Blackbeard, fourth hypothesis, and Kaido, fifth hypothesis. Kaido, because Kaido is the best fighter, an invincible fighter, and he fights back against the Logos. So we're opposed to that. That's understanding the nature of human problems. We're opposed to that. We need a fantasy that justifies the barbaric, savage, caveman-like enslavement and oppression by the dear leader, cult leader. Hey, MAGA death cult. Hey, Joe Rogan death cult. Hey, comedy mothership death cult. Hey, religious death cults. Hey, conservative death cults. Yes, they're all death cults. They want to murder people who oppose their tyranny, instead of doing their fucking job, addressing the source of their tyranny and growing. And equally so, we need to do our job and insist that every single leader, economic leader, justice leader in the legal system, spiritual leader, no more religion, and political leader, no more Dems versus Repubs, left versus right, has to be just like a doctor. There's no, I'm a doctor who believes that you can hurt some patients. No, I'm a pilot who thinks that you have to sacrifice some people. No, everyone gets to their destination safely. You idiot. Same standard for those other things. No one gets enslaved. No one has all of the wealth or power. What happens when they have all the wealth or the power? They have an opportunity to play out their ignorance on others with impunity, which hurts them and it hurts the people they're hurting on Epstein Island, or in a girls' primary school in Iran, who've just been bombed by America, or the medical Iranian, the doctors who tried to help them because double tap, these sadistic fucks have bombs that explode a second time to kill the medical workers who try and save the injured. That's our savage nature of our problems. It's what they do with their wealth and power. Play out their injustice with impunity, imitating their parental figures, part of that lineage that goes all the way back to the cave. Be it on Epstein Island or all over the world with capitalism and the war machine. So, those are the three big ideas in the seventh hypothesis. There is no hierarchy. And by the way, even if you're not religious, if you think all opinions are equal and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, that's the same view. That rejects that there are a hierarchy of opinions and hierarchy of cognitive functions, and opinions are the bottom. Beliefs are the cause of your opinions, and understanding is different. Everything is relative to your perspective. If you think it's true that you should beat your children, so instead of giving them the COVID shot, then that's just as true as someone who says, don't beat your children, give them the COVID shot. Who's to say? Who's to say? Notice, questions. Now, we had a couple of chatters ask similar questions today. What do you think? What's your belief? These are questions about a person. The logos isn't personal. In fact, our purpose can be understood by going through this journey that Socrates is demonstrating, and we are learning, and hopefully we're practicing. If you have someone in your life who's a good being and interested in this, the movement from the personal, our personal ignorance or beliefs or pathologos, to the impersonal. The self-logos is impersonal. Understanding is universal. What people are slowly realizing for humanity is this capitalist bullshit, this fascist bullshit is bad because it's one rule for you and one rule for me. The billionaire oil companies don't pay any fucking taxes to us Australians, while we have to pay 30 to 50% of our wages. The Epstein criminals don't get any punishment for their crimes. Well, if you look at the cop a wrong way, you go to prison for life or some bullshit. They can frame you very easily. The cops have strict standard for you, but the cops investigate themselves and they find that they never do anything wrong. The billionaires get to have 1,000 houses and you get none. You have to rent from them your whole life, and they can just increase the rent until you go outside, as I do often, and find there are people living on the streets because they've been priced out of homes by fucking billionaires. So what we're coming to realize is the standard is universal principles, universally applied to universally benefit. That's what it means to be impersonal or transcending the personal in a way that allows you to benefit and solve problems. By the way, as we enact these universal principles, these classes of false beliefs will show themselves. These bugs will come out from under the rotten log. I don't think everyone should get a house, says the Zionists. I don't think everyone should have financial freedom, says those billionaire Epstein people who want to manipulate through their wealth. What's the purpose of me being a billionaire if I can't exploit people who are starving or fear of homelessness? I don't think we should stop bombing children, says the Christian whatever. So we have to do both. And that's our job, says Socrates. Our job as humans is to address all of the family clan beliefs that surface while perfecting the impersonal understanding of the third hypothesis, understanding truth and benefit, and surfacing all of the family clan beliefs that oppose it. That's our job. And there's an end to that job. And Socrates says that in the book that we've been reading. I'm not going to pull it up because we've looked at it a bunch of times, but you can find it in the book. PDF link below, or you can buy the book. It's worth having. That when we finish that job, humanity's finished its work, transcending to a different kind of race, no longer of the human race, which is an interesting thing to wonder about. We've been wondering about for many, many, many weeks. So, as above, so below. As Jesus was blocked from the third by the seventh, so too in this conversation. the most common, the most dangerous, but it has three primary ideas. Well, there are a few. There are forces are equal and opposite, not hierarchically arranged. There is no connection. It's survival of the fittest. It's hot versus cold. It's God versus Satan. But this manifests as, so it's against providence and hierarchical arrangement. So it's against the essence of the third hypothesis, providence, which means intelligent care. That's out, by the way. If we become dialecticians, we become more caring and more intelligent. We become providential. That's not only is it the most meaningful activity, it's the best, kindest. That's why it's Shanks, because he's the coolest and he's the kindest. He helps the vulnerable and encourages the best. He encouraged Luffy. So it's Shanks number 3 there. But represented as a cosmological view, so their view of God, it requires, number 1, God. Their highest idea of God, or the goodness, the eternal goodness, is one at war. You also need the idea of, how do you explain human problems? Why are the conservatives, clergy, and capitalists so goddamn corrupt and sadistic and torturing children on Epstein Island and blowing up children in Israel and genociding children in Palestine? And instead of solving world hunger, they are exacerbating it. Why are they so evil? Badness as evil and its source, Satan or the devil. Let's just say Satan. So you need the idea of God, you need the idea of Satan. Satan too is at war with the forces of good, intelligibility and rationality. And the third idea is you need how that warring God and warring Satan plays out in that war, or Armageddon. If we can show that this God can't exist, this Satan can't exist, and this Armageddon can't exist, is impossible in principle, we have knocked down the 3 primary pillars of this most common and most dangerous worldview that underlines the Abrahamic religious traditions and underlies the idea of punishment, which is all pervasive in education. You punish the bad kid. Justice, punish the criminals. Economic system, punish the non-people who didn't get born into the right class. Punish the people born into the shithole countries, says Donald Trump. Punishment, which is the source to justify, I can be violent and feel like I'm being good like my mummy and daddy. Justify, well, it's used to justify justified violence or punishment, which is, again, evil, bad in principle, doesn't help any good, only does harm, and teaches only one thing: to avoid getting caught. That's it. Justice system, economic system, political system, us versus them. Even in our sport, one person has to win at the expense of everyone losing. It might be hard to see with sport because the stakes aren't life or death. But imagine a game of musical chairs. How does it start? One child is there with all of his friends playing well. How does it end? One child alone. All the other children excluded. Most of those children have spent more than half of the game watching the others have fun. How do they feel about the winner? Probably not like them. Musical chairs is a fantastic example of how this principle of competition plays out in even our games. There you go. So the most common, the most dangerous, with these 3 pillars: God, or God, Satan, or evil, and the war between them. That's what we're doing. Can we show rationally and necessarily this can't exist? No matter what your crazy ass opinions or beliefs say, no matter what your crazy ass parents or cult leaders say, there cannot be a God that fights war. There cannot be an Abrahamic God. It's impossible in principle. Can we also use the dialectic to use rational thinking developed as a skill to show that there can't be a source of evil like Satan? Evil is not a force. Can we also show that there cannot be this Armageddon or fight between them that literally the people in charge of the capitalist conservatives and clergy are seeking to end our species and planet because they think it's God's plan, because the only way the forces of good defeat the forces of evil is when we blow up enough people and the Jews take over Palestinian land, and then Jesus comes back and the saved get whisked to heaven and the bad get punished in hell forever. This fairy tale of ignorant bullshit is literally being held by many of the people who are dictating the course of our species, and we are allowing it. Can we show that these three pillars and that war can't exist in principle? Finally, can we say that if that's not the case, what is the nature of goodness? What is the nature of badness? And how do we actually solve problems? Can we find the positive? And once we've nailed that down, what is the human response to someone who personifies that worldview? We're talking to Jesus. Mr. Good versus Bad. Mr. Seventh Hypothesis. I mean, next to Abraham maybe. And Zoroaster, earlier philosopher, I think, who had this worldview as well. Mr. Seventh. How's he going to react? Now, we've already gone through those four dialectics that show how these three are not true, and what the fourth dialectic, the mysterious one that the author left for us to do, to show the actual nature of goodness, badness, and solving problems. So let's do a quick review of that and then jump into how Jesus responds to that, because that's our goal. Dialecticians are not computers. It's not just the truth. There's two aspects. There's the, well, ousia and logos, but there's truth and humanness. We have these fourth hypotheses, these negative hypotheses. We have these five interpretations. We have these five savage, unjust ways of relating to philosophers, people who speak truth. We have to account for that, recognize that, and navigate that as part of the art. That's the game. The self that communicates to us through dreams and our problems doesn't just tell us the truth. It gives us dramas. It gives us movies to solve. It gives us dramas in our life, or in our daydreams, in our fantasies, or in our literal dreams and night dreams. There's a reason for us to be here, and that's to learn. That learning has stages. So we are going to nail down our truth and see how Jesus responds with his humanness as a human at that level of One Piece character, Friends character, Hogwarts house, and Pokemon. As someone in that personality type. So roll over Myers-Briggs, we've got the One Piece Pokemon Potter Friends. I don't like the Friends one. Maybe we can think of a better one for Friends. Twilight character? No, that's still old, isn't it? What's something popular right now? Demon Hunters? I haven't seen that anime yet. K-pop Demon Hunters. We'll think of something. So that's what we're gonna do. Review that, see how Jesus reacts, and what's the time? Oh, Jesus. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow, because I've been streaming for 2 hours and I need to go play some music. So, all right. So it's a review. Well, seeing as it's a review, we'll finish the review real quick. We'll cover those four dialectics really quick. No, we can't do it that quickly. Here it is on the board. We've been doing it over the last week or two. So we've got dialectic that says a God cannot be at war because war is abandonment of the intelligible. Anti-intelligible and anti-rational is the definition of bad or evil, if you're that way inclined. Therefore, God cannot be at war, which is unintelligible, which is evil, which is not his nature, because the God's nature has to be eternally good by definition. So in principle, you can't have a God that is at war. Satan can't exist Satan is the personification of evil, which is to be irrational and unintelligible, opposed to the third and second hypothesis, which is what we're moving into. Planning for a war requires rationality and contemplating a good goal that you want. So that's to plan is act intelligently towards one's good is needed for war. Satan can't do that by definition. Therefore, he can't marshal his forces and prepare for the upcoming war. There can't be a Satan that can therefore participate in a war. Even if he abandoned his nature for a moment, it's not even worth it because he would know he's going to lose. Because the one who wins is the best rational planner at the war. They can't be at war in principle because they can't exist in the same dimension. The principle of likeness or coincidence, things that occupy the same space and time become like themselves. Satan can't coexist or clash with God without becoming like God, who is good. Like God is goodness, Satan is not goodness, therefore Satan can't coexist or clash with God, therefore in principle Armageddon can't happen. The fourth dialectic is the big one. I guess we'll review that next time. That shows that Armageddon is not necessary. And here it is as a map. Yeah, I think that's the end of the day. We'll leave it there. Tomorrow we'll go through this map one more time and then jump into how Jesus responds. So, lots of fun. Thank you for the new chatters. I hope you had fun. To you we say,
I have a sickness for the thickness.
we have a sickness for your thickness.
Funny, cool, and accents. It's just, this is, come on.
That's me. I hope you found me funny, cool, and with accents. Come on. And finally, one more sound drop.
I have a sickness for the thickness.
Well, we've already done that one.
The T-virus will transform me into an epic creation.
And I hope you are being transformed into an epic creation as well.
Cool as a cuke.
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
Now your head's large and full of secrets. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Good review today. Worth doing. Worth going over it from top to bottom with new people because, you know, maybe they can get into it. And they need an overview if they're going to be interested, even though we're 170 episodes in. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.